listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome.
Welcome to Second Wind with Joyce Buford. That would be me. And I am delighted to have you with me today and my guest. You're going to love my guest. But I want to remind you that Second Wind was really created for you. I wanted you, when I went through my transition, I really didn't have all the tools that I needed. And I think this is one of the tools you do need. And that is to reach out, get to know yourself. And you do that by listening to awesome guests such as I have. Now, to get informed, you have to know how to make those transitions successfully and with fulfillment of playing full out with your lives and not being afraid, reaching for the sky, if you will. Second Wind has those guests that are going to help you get there. They range from all different areas of life. And I'm delighted and thrilled to be sharing my guest today, which is Zoilita Grant. Now, she will share with you some new knowledge that I'm kind of new with, and that is the past life regression. So I'm excited to get moving on with that right now. So let me tell you about Zoilita. Zoilita she has been a guest on my show before, so I'm delighted that she's returned and sharing more of her wisdom with us. And you'll see all of her wisdom here. Zoilita has been involved in human development for over 40 years. She graduated from UC Berkeley in 1971 with a bachelor's degree in psychology, got her Master of Social Work from the University of Texas, El Paso, Texas, in 1979. She has had the privilege of managing two nonprofits, the YMCA in El Paso, Texas, and a drug and alcohol program in Bellefontaine, Ohio. Other than a short period of time as a drug and alcohol corporate trainer, her entire professional life has been private practice. She worked for over 25 years as a psychotherapist, specializing in hypnosis. And for the last 12 years, she has been a hypnotic coach. All these different forms trick me here. Her desire to serve both her peers and her general public led her to help form the Colorado Association of Psychotherapists. She serves as the president for 6 years. She also served as vice president of the American Council of Hypnotists for 21 years. She offers certificates as hypnotherapist professionals and products for them and the general public. Wow, lady, that's a great bio. You are just a go-getter. I mean, how you do both those jobs at one time is amazing to me, and being married and raising a family. But anyway, welcome. It's always great to visit with you. And this topic today is just, I don't know anything about it. So I am so anxious to become more informed. It is about past life regressions. And before I get into that, as being a psychotherapist in the beginning, you did keep learning and transitioning. And you shared with me in your pre-info information about what was the defining moment that really drew you to studying, becoming more familiar with past life regressions.
So, the whole theme of your program is helping and supporting people in transitions. And so really coming to understand this idea of past lives, whether we see it as a metaphor or whether we literally put on different lifetimes, learning to learn those soul lessons through that experience really assists you in all kinds of transitions.
Right.
From my earliest age, I've had a couple of memories that are so strong that I believe came from past lives. And one of these memories was about my son. When my son was born, I was very concerned about losing him. I was overly protective
Mm.
of him. You know, I went to like every single sports event he had with feelings of trepidation and having to pray for his safety. And I realized it was because I had this past life memory of having lost him.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to hold on to him too tightly in a way that probably wasn't completely healthy because it was compensating for something.
Yes.
You know, we often do that.
Right.
So when I felt called to move to Colorado, called is a better term than decided because it came from inside of me, not from outside of me. He was just going into the 8th grade. And my original intention was to take him with me, you know, when I moved. And he went and made arrangements with his church youth leader to live with them and to help take care of their little boys without even speaking to me or his father.
Oh my goodness.
And when we discussed this, he said, you know, it's really better for me to finish the 8th grade with kids I started with kindergarten with. And that was so true. That I had to let go of him. And when I let go of him, it flashed in my memory this experience that I had had as a young mother whose son had died at an early age. And it was like when I could let him go with grace, it resolved that peace.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, one, he was very insightful. I can't believe, how old was he? 9?
He was like 13.
Oh, 13. Such a grown-up young man. So, and you're right. It does make sense. It was a very logical thing to do. Now, you sort of went into a little explanation of past life regression, but really, what is it? I mean, what is
So,
it?
so the kind of techniques that I use are really a blend of shamanism
Uh-huh.
and some techniques called alchemical hypnosis and my own spiritual healing technique.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you work with past lives, you're really working with the code of the soul. So the things that you can resolve in these experiences or you can gain in these experiences really come into your life here in the 21st century.
Yeah. Okay, I've got another question. Where is the soul in our
So the
body?
soul, I think, is energy. I think everything is energy and
Yes. Yeah.
vibration and
Right.
frequency. And then, you know, if you take, for instance, water
Yeah.
at one frequency is ice,
Yes.
and another frequency it's water, and
Yeah.
another frequency it's steam,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still all water.
Yeah. Yeah.
So inside of us, there is the energetic frequency of the soul, which I think is our connection to God
Yes.
or the source, however we
Yes.
want to talk about it. So the more that we connect into our soul, the closer we get to God.
So you can basically substitute the word energy.
You could substitute the word energy, inner self,
Okay.
higher self,
Yeah.
spirit.
Yeah. Okay. So why would one want to take that time? I know your example showed clarity, calming of a fear, but what are some of the reasons that somebody would take the time to go back and study their past life.
So there are 4 things that you can do with past life work.
Uh-huh.
Okay, the first thing you can do is you could go into a past life where you had a talent, an ability, or a skill, and you could bring that talent, ability, and skill forward into the 21st century and enhance the skill you have in the 21st century.
Oh, okay.
So that's called finding gifts.
Uh-huh.
Another thing that you can do is called redecision work. And redecision work is when there's something in this lifetime that seems like you cannot resolve it.
Uh-huh.
It's because there might have been a decision that your soul made at a previous time. Now, I can give you a real example of this about a woman whose life was totally transformed. This
Really?
woman was a chiropractor who never had any money.
Mm-hmm.
She was like always broke. Like she'd
Yeah.
get a little bit ahead, the engine would go out in her car. She'd start to get a full client load, the landlord would raise the rent.
Mm-hmm.
So she just felt like somehow she was blocked from being able to be prosperous. And so she had a little feeling that it had to do with a past life.
Yeah.
That was her own soul guidance
Uh-huh.
telling her that.
Yeah.
So we went into a past life where the problem began around money. Okay, we set the intention. We went down the river of time. We went through the transition place into the past life. And in the past life, she had been a soldier in Judea when the Romans were there, and they were taking all the money in taxes from the people.
Oh.
And she, as the soldier, felt justified because it was for Rome. You know, he was very patriotic.
Right.
But then after his service ended and he went back to Rome, he saw that the Romans were just like greedy and gluttonous and,
Yeah.
and you know, they weren't these honorable, noble people he had made up in his mind. And so over the course of his life, he got more and more cynical about money. And when he died, the thought of the soul was, money is evil, I never want money.
Oh. Yeah.
So when we found that, we connected in with the higher power, with God, and we checked if it was okay for the soul to make a new decision.
Okay.
And so the new decision was, I will always use money as a valuable resource.
Okay.
And within 3 months, her financial picture totally changed around miraculously.
Really? Wow. We always think of the mind in its present state. You know, we have to get over the negative thinking and all those things. But I really never think about going back. How could you decide a call? And I know we have 2 more to go through, but how do you make a decision that with this reappearing thing, and I'll just use myself here, this thing that I like to sing, but I don't sing other than a choir. So is that, would one say, well, is that a past life, or is that just because I'm not practicing?
So my belief is that the purpose of life is to learn the lessons of the soul.
Yeah.
And I believe in reincarnation and that the soul goes through different lifetimes to learn different lessons to
Yes.
come closer and closer to God.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that the issues we see in this life, chances are those are things carried in the soul that the soul is learning over time.
Okay.
And if they are not pretty easily resolved in the present lifetime by getting more confidence, by instilling more self-discipline to practice, then I would go back into the past when the issue first began
Yes.
about loving to sing, but not really doing.
Yes. Right. Oh. All right. Now, going back to the three
Past life
different kinds.
things.
Past. Yes.
Yeah. So another thing you can do is what's called contract work.
Oh.
And contract work is when two souls have an agreement, or they've created some kind of soul agreement with another soul that plays out into this life. Would you like an example?
Yes.
Okay. So this was a therapist. This was when I was a therapist, and the therapist came to me. And she had this bizarre pattern where she had her sister living in the basement, and she was essentially supporting her sister, who smoked pot all day and really did nothing with her life.
Yes.
And it was causing some problems with her husband. She and her husband lived at the top part of the house. And her husband was like, throw her out.
Yes.
And she was feeling like, I can't, I have to take care of her.
Yeah.
So she said, I keep getting in my meditation, this might be tied into a past life. So we did a past life regression. And when you do this regression, you go to this place called the interlife, which is the place between lives. And you set an intention with the soul and the spiritual guidance. And then we went back into this life. And in this life in the past, where she had been a sailor and her sister had been her lover, and she was always going away to sea. And one time when she went away to sea, the soul of the sister died of a broken heart.
Oh.
So when the sailor came back on her grave, he swore an oath that if he ever ran into her again, he would take care of her.
Oh, so that's what her sister was doing.
Yeah.
But she was in a different body.
He was in a different body. Yeah. So the person that was the sailor became my client.
I see.
And the person that was the lover became my client's sister. And my client was playing out that graveside promise.
Yes.
By continuing to take care of her sister.
Right. Yes.
Once she saw that, she could start to change the pattern.
So so that helps understand what's happening. But then, did you work with her to take action? What the action steps would be?
So in the past life, when we consulted with the soul,
yes,
the soul said the contract was up.
Oh.
So she could let go of the sister.
Okay.
So in the real, when she came back from the experience, we created a plan, a 6-month plan.
Yes.
To help her sister become self-sufficient.
Right. Interesting. All right. And the fourth one.
So the fourth one is really the most advanced technique. And I always like to make sure that people are very emotionally intelligent and have a strong enough sense of themselves to recognize that perhaps we have all done perpetrator acts. And perhaps we have all acquired some negative karma through things that we have done. So this is a technique where you go into a past life and you find a place where the client committed atrocities or committed, negative acts that are having a karmic impact on this life. And then we resolve them. So this is probably the technique I've done the fewest times. But I do remember a significant experience that I had with a woman who was trying to get pregnant.
Yeah.
And she had been trying to get pregnant for probably 3 or 4 years.
Yes.
And in her spiritual work, she came to believe that it had something to do with something she had done in the past.
Oh.
So we did the past life regression, and she was the head of an orphanage in England during the time of Dickens,
Yes.
the late 1800s. And she was like taking the money that the people donated to the orphanage and buying furs and jewels and feeding the children oatmeal mush
Uh-huh.
and being unkind to them.
Oh, yes.
So this karmic act of the unkindness and mistreatment of children was kind of standing as a block from her being able to conceive a child.
Mm, yes.
So that technique turns out to be very complicated because then we need to go to the council. The council is like what lots of people think of as the last judgment,
Uh-huh.
but it's really the review of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And we go to the council and we ask the council for forgiveness. And then we had to deal with all of the souls of the children that had the mistreatment to see
Oh
if
my
they
goodness.
could forgive her.
Yes.
And then the council made an atonement. And the atonement was that she was to become a big sister to a girl needing help and to selflessly give to that girl for 1 year before she could get pregnant. And Joyce, I
Really?
have to tell you, it was the most powerful experience for me because that's what's happened. That's
Really?
what happened. She came back. She joined the Big Sister group in
Yes.
Denver. She became a big sister. She actively got involved. And then about, I'd say maybe 14 months later, she got pregnant.
Wow. That's amazing.
It was one of those things where you say, okay, so I do believe in God, and now I believe in God more.
Yeah. Yes. So you're not asking people to choose between one, the regression is a way of still honoring God
Yes, for
by
sure.
his allowing us to go back.
Yes.
Is that
Yeah.
right? Is that how you would put it?
Yes.
Allowing us?
And when we give people explanations for past life work, we can say, this could be a metaphor
Yes.
that your mind is creating
Uh-huh.
that is going to allow you to resolve something in your life.
Yes.
But I think a key piece in my work that I really want to stress is that I believe that the roots of all healing and growth come from God.
Mm,
And I believe it's okay to call God different names, like
yes.
the universe or spirit or your higher self or energy.
Yeah.
But I think when we have that intention in our hearts of recognizing we're talking about the divine,
Mm-hmm.
it creates almost like an attitude of prayer inside of us.
Yes. Okay, now I'm thinking of past lives. All right, so I go back one life, then, and this may be too simple, I don't know. But can we assume that maybe it could be 3 or 4 lives past, but she has brought through to the next one the same issues? I'm a little lost in past lives. If it's 4 past lives past,
So what we
how do
want
you
to
get
go
there?
to, we want to go to the root.
The
Okay?
root.
To
Okay.
go to the root of the problem. So
Okay.
we want to go back as far as we need to go. So
Right.
this is what the process looks like. Okay. So just like if I want to go to New York and I live in Denver, I could just take my car and head east, or
Yeah.
I could Google Map.
Right.
If I Google Map, I have a map.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If I want to go into past lives, I can just like go into the subconscious and I can ask for guidance and I can wander around and I might find it.
Right.
Or I could use a map. And there's a map in consciousness called the River of Time.
Oh.
The River of Time has been used as a journeying into past life by many cultures,
Mm-hmm.
by many spiritual traditions. So we begin at the River of Time. And then we go back through time, looking at scenes in your life where this issue or this problem might have shown up. Okay, because that
Okay.
strengthens the connection to the energy. And
Yes.
then we go into the tunnel
Uh-huh.
that takes you into this place called the interlife.
Uh-huh.
The interlife is on a spiritual plane, and there are sections in the interlife, like the council is there,
Mm-hmm.
the Akasha records or the Library of Time is there.
Yes.
Okay, so there's many things in that interworld, but there's also a transition point, and in the transition point, you could have people coming up the Rainbow Bridge, or you could have people going into past lives.
So if somebody, I'm just listening and reliving the situation that I had. If somebody loves, like I'm drawn to medieval movies, love them. It's kind of I just love all the pomp and circumstance and all of that, even the swords and the fighting.
Yeah, I like them too.
So is that an indicator that we can go by, that there was a time in our life that we participated in that?
I think it's an indicator. We
Yeah.
can't say it's absolute,
Right.
but chances are you did have some marvelous lives in the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
And chances are there could be some gifts that
Yeah.
I believe you've always been a really innovative woman. So you could have been something like a silk merchant in Venice.
Oh, I would have liked that.
Yes, because you love those kinds of rich fabrics and colors.
Yes.
And you're
Yes.
good with commerce and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love travel.
Yeah.
So that's all. So is it possible for someone to sit down? Of course, I know they would need to come to you or someone with your skills that could really guide them. This is not something we can do on our own, is
No,
it?
this is not like, try this out at your kitchen table. This is
Yes.
this is like being guided, because I myself and the people I train use a lot of spiritual tools
Uh-huh.
to prepare the environment and prepare the client for successful and safe experience.
Uh-huh. So how long does it take to have a journey?
So 75 to 90 minutes.
Yes.
Because we want to begin with spiritual preparation. And spiritual preparation is really grounding the space, opening sacred space. I always call upon the archangels to create a grid around the space that we're working in, so that we have this really powerful spiritual vortex that we want to work in.
So how is somebody called to know they want to do this journey?
Sometimes it's the curiosity. Like I've worked with a lot of people that wanted to enhance spiritual gifts. We all have intuitive type gifts.
Yes.
many times our particular society is not supportive of those gifts. And so they kind of fade away. But there were times in the past where spiritual gifts were very important to a
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah.
And so I've worked with a lot of people that wanted to go back into Egyptian lives or into Celtic lives or Druid
Yes.
lives where they had spiritual gifts and they could own those gifts.
Yes. Yeah. Well, this really sounds exciting. You know, I love to travel, so I'm like, okay, I'm on a journey here.
Oh, then I want to tell you a story about travel.
Yeah.
So I did some distance work with a guy that was a professor in another state, and he
Uh-huh.
was a professor of history. And I started out doing work with him, really kind of enhancing learning because hypnosis is so useful for so many things. But I helped him have the ability to power learn because he really
Yes.
wanted to know all of the history of the British Isles
Oh,
because he just kept having this feeling that he had lived in that area.
yes.
So as he was getting closer to retiring, he started to write a novel, a
Oh,
historical fiction novel based on Scotland and vague impressions and memories he had about this past life. So he decided that when he retired, he would go to Scotland, but he would come by Colorado
yeah.
and do a couple of in-person sessions with me
Yes.
to really increase his ability to learn.
Uh-huh.
So one of the things that I did was I put memory into his feet, that if he stepped in places that he had stood before, memory would start coming up into the soles of his feet
Oh, that's exciting.
and just kind of radiate out through him. And he took a journal to write his novel.
Oh, did he
So
end up writing the novel he wanted to write?
he wrote a different novel because it turned out that he was the villain in the story, not the hero.
Nothing is, he totally changed the direction of his art, of his book.
Right, right. But he did use that experience of like connecting into places that his soul had been
Yes.
and
Yeah.
bringing memories so that he could do journaling about.
So he had to be aware of this desire and love of the New England and the English area. But so he had that going for him, but then the desire to write the book and do work with you allowed him. So he was actually going on, could you say a hunch?
A hunch?
A
A hunch is a
hunch?
good one. And that's
Yeah.
one of the ways that we can like kind of trace um, past life content is that people often have a hunch
Yes.
that this could be a past life thing. Like I walked into the city of Barcelona and
Uh-huh.
I stood in front of that arch and I knew I had been there when that arch was dedicated.
Really?
Yes, and that happened to me in 2019.
Wow.
And there was no question, oh my gosh, I have been here before.
Yes.
So the funny story on me was I began to wonder, well, then could I just learn Spanish if I went back to that past life personality?
Uh-huh.
So I went to a hypnosis conference and I did a session with someone else that does past life regression.
Yes.
And I went back into that lifetime in Barcelona to learn Spanish. And it turned out that I was Catalonian and I didn't speak Spanish.
Even back then, they didn't have to be totally Spanish speaking.
I was a gypsy.
Oh,
I was a
no.
gypsy that was selling things at
Yeah.
this kind of festival when they dedicated the art.
Oh, I love that. Well, that's even following. We really have to do this work because that's even following. I watch the Outlanders as one of my primary uh, programs or series on Netflix, and which was just an enlightening experience for me. And I've been watching medieval things for 2 years since pandemic. but but anyway, in May, I'm taking a trip to the Highlands because it's just calling me to go see I don't think I'm going to see anybody. The battlefield is gone from what was there at the Outlanders where they were. But anyway, I just think it's beautiful. If nothing
Yeah.
else, it's a beautiful experience. So we're going to have to do that thing to my feet.
Yes, definitely. It's a really good kind of technique because you have senses.
Yes.
You have all of your sensory elements are like in the soles of the feet and the palms of the hands. And if you just
Wow.
enhance them, they go into the energy because I really think that we need to just keep going back to Einstein's idea that
Yeah.
everything is about energy and about frequency. And so we can align to different energies. I mean, that's one of your primary teaching about aligning to your values and aligning
Mhm.
to your positive thoughts.
Yes. Yes. And going to those things that you just give you joy.
Yeah,
They're fulfilling your needs and
yeah,
your calling,
yeah,
on this life.
yeah.
So how long does it take someone to go? I know this would vary with most people, but is there like an expectation that a person could um, uh, know about the time that it might take to go through a regression process?
So definitely you can do a regression in 75 minutes to an hour and a half and
And
have
walk
very,
away with information?
yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
really?
Yes, in fact, I'm planning a retreat at the end of April called Discovering Past Lives, where I'm going to take people through all of these kinds of experiences as a way of kind of cleaning up their soul stuff
Yes,
so that they can really live their best empowered lives.
yes. Yeah. Yeah, you said a couple of things that I could I'm going, "Oh, it'd be great if we can fix that." Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Really?
it's just really fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think that, for people who in some way feel uncomfortable with the idea of thinking about past us living in past lives, that really
Mhm.
feel uncomfortable with the idea that, the soul does reincarnate,
Yes.
you can look upon this could be a metaphor. It could be in your DNA. It could be ancestral patterns that
Mhm.
you're living through. Or if
Yeah.
you want to like get into Carl Jung, you could be connecting into the cosmic unconscious. There's lots of ways that you can define what happens, but the experience is profound.
Mhm.
The experience is, I'm just totally enthusiastic about hypnosis, and I feel hypnosis is the greatest transformation you can do.
Yes.
Doing past life work is really kind of like the next level up. It's like, now you're working on your PhD. You're working on the higher levels of soul and mind development.
Right. Yeah. Uh, I have two adopted children, and I was thinking as I was preparing for our call today that this would be many of them many times have a lot of a lot of questions,
Yeah.
and this could be a real gift because sometimes it's really hard to find your records, find your mother and your father. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this might be a
And
real
and the
gift.
piece about, you know, I've been lucky enough to have a long career that I really loved. And one of the ways that I've kept it a career that I loved, and I specialized in just different niches
Yes.
over time. And there was a period of time for a couple of years when I worked with a lot of adopted children.
Mm.
And I worked a lot with working through those issues of, abandonment and wondering
Yes.
why and all that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I used a lot of hypnosis to
Uh-huh.
basically let them feel like they could connect to the spirits of their biological mothers and say anything they wanted to say, and then listen from the heart,
Mhm.
see if they got any messages.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be very, very beneficial. I mean,
Yeah.
because you can imagine sometimes, yes, you've got your second family, which would be me and my husband, but not knowing you want to know your roots.
Yeah.
Everybody does,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, I think it's a great thing. And are there though that many people that do regressions? Are in
It is probably a very, Brian Weiss did it.
yeah.
Okay. Um, there are just a few people that do it. Most people that do it only do redecision work. The part about
Okay.
finding gifts is,
Oh,
is
yes.
a really unique piece. The part about really working with contracts and bringing in kind of Akashic record stuff. Like I have to tell you, Joyce, I have studied many, many systems, but I am not a systems person. I'm eclectic.
Uh-huh.
And so I pulled pieces of soul retrieval work from shamanism,
Yes.
and I pulled pieces of alchemical transformation from more spiritual healing kinds of tools and techniques. So
Yes.
the past life regression that I've created really is unique.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I like that about you, that you create your own road, and it's been very successful. You're right. You've had a long career. I
Yeah,
work with you, and I thoroughly enjoy our work and our progress that we've made.
yeah,
I think we all need that uh, support in addressing those things that we got sort of from our early childhood,
yeah,
and we can confront them and change them. So I
yeah.
think that's really important. Yeah.
And I like the shift the country is doing from psychotherapy into coaching. And
Ah,
I want to honor psychotherapy and honor all psychotherapists. And there are people that are genuinely needing psychotherapy. But there's a shift happening culturally where more and more people are going into needing coaches. Okay.
yes.
People recognize that they need support in their life.
Yeah.
And the coaching model is much more empowering for the client.
Yes.
Because it's not like saying there's something wrong with you, you need to do therapy. It's about saying you have potential you haven't hit upon.
Yes.
You have hopes and dreams. Let's
Yes.
bring them into reality. Like my coach said something the other day was she says, I think it's wonderful that you have hopes and dreams. I like hope too, but it's not a plan.
So when did you decide you wanted to do a workshop, a retreat? Because the retreat is new for you, isn't it?
It is. It is. Well, I'm turning my house into a retreat center. I have a beautiful house with a lot of rooms,
Yes.
and I have a lovely landscaped yard, and I have a great classroom for when I had the hypnotherapy and hypnotic coaching school. So I
Uh-huh.
have a classroom. So I have all of these facilities. I went to a retreat in South Carolina over Thanksgiving weekend, and I was like, okay, this woman turned her house into a retreat center. She has a yard, she has a garage, she's turned into a classroom.
Yes. I like
This is
this.
something I like to do. I like
Yes.
to have experiences with people that
Yeah.
are intense growth experiences.
Yeah.
And then I think that I'm going to do this, for the general public, Discovering Past Lives retreat. And
Mhm.
then I'm going to do a certification in October for people that want to learn how to do this.
Oh,
That want to learn how to
great.
do past life regressions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, would they have to learn hypnosis first
They would learn it in the training.
in the training?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. They
But
would
you do,
they would learn to do what I know how to do.
yeah. Zolita, because your whole history has been moving from one to another stages. I mean,
Yes.
it's been growth. Like it's just grow, grow,
I'm
grow.
the, I'm the queen of evolution. I have a client who told me the other day she's worked with me for 19 years in all of my various phases.
Really? That's a dedicated client.
Well,
For
she's
sure.
in and out, but she definitely sees me at least once a month.
Oh, yes. Yes. Well,
Yeah.
actually, it was wonderful. We met at a workshop.
Yeah.
That's where we met. And sort of just clicked. I liked Zolita immediately. So we met at lunch, I think. And it was really interesting. Beautiful spot. But we've been studying together for 2 years.
Yeah.
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 Yes. And look how I've grown.
You have marvelously.
I know. So I will not be at that workshop, you understand, because I'm going to the Highlands.
I understand you'll be in the Highlands of Scotland. Yeah,
Yes. But we will definitely prepare for that trip.
we will. We will
Yeah.
definitely prepare.
Yes. So, what has been the most rewarding thing? You've been doing past life regressions for how many years?
I think that I've been weaving them in and out for about 40.
40?
40.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And that was really from that growth of that one experience?
Well, that's what got me interested.
Yes.
And then I started training. You know, I I'm a lifelong learner.
Yes, but you love
So
to teach too.
yes, so I've been
Yeah.
training, and I trained for a good significant piece of time in shamanism.
Yes.
And when I studied in shamanic kind of techniques, I learned a lot of things that I brought into past life regression, because
Mhm.
shamanism is really working directly with the soul for the soul's evolution and growth.
Yes.
And so I just kind of incorporated that into doing the journey of the soul as it's moved through different lifetimes. And the
Uh-huh.
soul grows. The soul grows and learns. And so the
Oh, it
soul
oh,
of my
okay.
21st century client
Uh-huh.
was more aware than the soul of her when she lived in the 18th century.
Oh.
And took that oath on the grave, I'll always take care of you if I find you again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I first had an experience. I've actually had a visit with a shaman in Peru.
Mhm.
So are they pretty well known in other parts of the world as well?
There's
Where
a
did you
wonderful tradition that is called the Kumandera tradition,
uh,
which has to do with kind of women, medicine women
uh-huh.
that come all through Mexico and Guatemala and El Salvador. And
Uh-huh.
my grandmother, who was my father's mother, actually had training in that. And she was like known as a healer,
Ah,
and she would read tea leaves. Like you would
oh,
tea with her, and then she would take the tea leaves and put them on a napkin and tell people's fortunes.
oh, I love that. I've always been fascinated by that. They did that in the Outlander movie too.
Yeah, it was just like startling. And
Yeah.
so I think I have some of that in my blood.
Yes.
You know, I think that we do have memory of ancestors and things ancestors learned inside of our DNA.
Yes.
And so I've always had like a natural drawing to learning how to work on spiritual levels.
Yeah. Just so, are you of the belief, Zoilita, that people wanting, whether they realize it or not, of needing to move on, grow, are cross paths with those leaders, those people that can help them?
I think that when you start to do the spiritual journey in whatever way that you do your own spiritual journey, then there are spiritual forces. I believe there are angels and spirit
Yes.
guides. There are spiritual forces that begin to work through your intuition.
Yes.
And so you might
Oh,
go
okay.
into a bookstore and sometimes a book will fall off a shelf.
Yes.
And you know, oh, that's the book I need to read right now. That's what happened to me with the Celestine prophecy.
Oh.
Okay. I was
Uh-huh.
walking in a bookstore and a book fell off of a shelf right in front of me. And my husband said, well, obviously, that's the book you need to read.
Oh, that's pretty interesting.
And that book, you know, if you haven't read that book, I really want to recommend it because it has all of these wonderful spiritual truths that are woven into a novel.
Oh, really? What's this novel again?
It's called The Celestine Prophecy, and it's by James Redman.
Okay. Now, you are offering our listeners today the opportunity to have a, a freebie at the website. So tell us about that.
So if your listeners go to my website, they can sign up for my newsletter and they can get a wonderful downloadable MP3 called You Deserve Prosperity. And it's a way of like transforming the mind into prosperity consciousness.
Ah,
I would
yes.
also like to offer anyone that emails me, and I can say my email or you'll have it
Yeah,
printed
no,
out.
you
So
can say it.
it's Zoilita, Zoilita at zoilitagrant.net. And it's .net, not .com. But if you email me, I will send you the complete super self-esteem program that has a
Oh,
wonderful downloadable manual and an MP3 called Super Self-Esteem. Because
oh, awesome.
self-esteem is the foundation of everything you get in life.
Right. That's a wonderful gift. Yeah. I really encourage people to do that. Now, your website is www.mindset-for-success.org.
Mindsetforsuccess.org.
Right. So people need to get around and find all the wonderful things you do offer, as well as you could do. I mean, we've been doing our work certainly over the internet. I'm in Tyler, Texas, and you're in Denver, Colorado.
Yes,
So, and it
definitely,
works really
definitely.
well.
And one of the wonderful things about using Zoom for sessions is that the hypnosis part is always recorded for your own customized replay.
Yes. Yeah. That's really wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, Zoilita, we are approaching the end of this fascinating hour, just packed full of new thoughts for some people, further thoughts for some people, and a great big desire to more thoughts for some people. So I really encourage you listeners out there to think about your life. What are you wanting out of your life? Are you getting it? Or maybe there is far more because Zoilita has indeed offered you a key today that could help you open that door. So, Zoilita, before we close, I always like to ask my guests 2 questions. What would be, so here goes number 1. May I ask you, are you open? How would you share any pitfall to avoid on their journey? What is a pitfall that you yourself found, or that you have found others to be a common one that people have that prevent them from really doing their journey?
The expectation that motivation will just be downloaded upon you. Because the reality is you have to learn to self-motivate yourself by
Oh,
establishing good habits.
yeah. Yeah, that's a big one. And a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah,
Lack of motivation. So this is a big one too. What is your biggest success as you look back over your life? What's your biggest success?
My biggest success is raising 2 children to be highly functioning, happy, well-adjusted adults.
Yes. Yes. And they are. And this was the young man that at 13 decided what was best for him.
And knew how to say it in the language that would convince his mother.
Yes, I think that's so cute. Oh my. Well, this has really been a great show. As you know, I always enjoy our time together. So I thank you for saying yes. One of the key things that I like to share with you listeners, and it always applies, that, one of the keys is taking advantage of what's being offered to you free from Zoilita today, making the effort, going to her website, taking advantage. But it's also connecting, not just with her, but other people that can offer you the support, that can connect you. Like she's connected you to a wonderful book that can help you grow. So there's so many opportunities out there. If you're not happy where you are today, if you've got something stopping you, all you have to do is look around and reach out. There's so much out there waiting for you that can really change your life. It can move you in the direction that you're really meant to grow in. So I encourage you. This is a new year, and I feel really positive about this year. I do. Even though we can't totally get rid of the virus, we're going to keep on living, and we're going to not let it get us down, but handle it in our daily lives. So thank you. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Zoilita, for being here. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you. And I love spending time with you listeners out there. As you know, I'm getting back into the season, and it's just wonderful to be back talking with you. So anyway, this week, go out. There are a couple things you can do. Go buy this book. Go to Zoilita's website and get those extras and those special things that she has offered to you. Really, that Mindset for Success is awesome. And also, love each other, be kind to each other, and have a great week, and share the message. Thank you for being here. Next week, I'll see you. Bye.
You do great, Joyce.
Oh, I kind of had to get on my game in the beginning, but anyway.
You do great. You do great at like interviewing people and bringing people out. You have a gift.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I want to pursue the other gift.
The singing one.
Yeah. I know there's something in there. There's no reason that keeps bothering me.
Yes. Yes. I have to run because I have a client.
That's right. Okay. Bye, dear.
Blessings, my dear. Thank you.
Bye.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.